Now, I found it really ironic in the book that, we have all of these people in the world who have sort of fashioned themselves as professional forecasters. I mean, pundits on TV, they're really television personalities, media personalities. And it's almost and it seems like to do that job, it's almost kind of a cult of personality. You don't want to be proven wrong. You would never admit that you're wrong. You're just going to sort of keep kicking it down the road and say, no, it's going to happen. But what you find in the book is that super forecasters, one of the things that unites all of them, despite coming from all these walks of life, is that they're willing to be proven wrong, or they are open to the idea. They're willing to sort of look at things, look at evidence, and retread and pivot. And so I found that interesting. It was kind of ironic, and I know you tell a story in the book about foxes versus hedgehogs that was very interesting.
Right. The fox-hedgehog metaphor is drawn out of a surviving fragment of poetry from the Greek warrior poet Archilochus 2,500 years ago, and scholars have puzzled over it over the centuries. It runs something like this, and of course I don't know ancient Greek, so I'm taking it on faith. This is what it actually says. The fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing. Now, you can think of hedgehogs in debates over political and economic issues as people who have a big ideological vision. Tom Friedman might be animated by a vision of, say, globalization. The world is flat. Libertarians are animated by the vision that there are free market solutions for the vast majority of problems that beset us. There are people on the left who see the need for major state intervention to redress various inequities. There are environmentalists who think that we're on the cusp of an apocalypse of some sort. And so you have people who are animated by a vision, and their forecasts are informed largely by that vision. Whereas the foxes tend to be more eclectic. They kind of pick and choose their ideas from a variety of schools of thought. They might be a little bit environmentalist and a little bit libertarian, or they might be a little bit socialist and a little bit hawkish on certain national security issues. They blend things in unusual ways, and they're harder to classify politically. Now, in the early work, we found that the foxes who were more eclectic in their style of thinking were better forecasters than the hedgehogs. And in the later work, we found something similar. We found that people who scored high on psychological measures of active open-mindedness and need for cognition, those people who scored high on those personality variables tended to do quite a bit better as forecasters.
Now, it seemed to me then that what we would really want is for more foxes to be kind of these really prominent forecasters, or these people that we're seeing on television, that we're seeing in the news. But then at the same time, it almost seems like their personalities are just not necessarily what we think of, or at odds with what we think of when we think of a leader, when we think of someone who's always putting themselves out there. So what does that mean for trying to get more accurate forecasters? I mean, how do we get people to listen to the foxes when they might not be the sexiest or the most prominent or the people that we want to look at all the time or listen to all the time?
That's right.
So what do we do?
That is a bit of a dilemma. Imagine you are a producer for a major television show, and you have a choice between someone who's going to come on the air and tell you that something decisive and bold and interesting. He's going to say the Eurozone is going to melt down in the next 2 years, or Chinese economy is going to melt down, or there's going to be a jihadist coup in Saudi Arabia. He's got a big, interesting story to tell, and the person knows quite a bit and can mobilize a lot of reasons to support the doomster prediction, say, on Eurozone or China or Saudi Arabia, or a boomster prediction for that matter. It doesn't matter. But the person is charismatic and forceful and can generate a lot of reasons why he or she is right, as opposed to someone who comes on and says, well, yeah, on the one hand, yeah, there's some danger the Eurozone is going to melt down, but on the other hand, there are these countervailing forces, and on balance, probably nothing dramatic is probably going to happen in the next year or so, but it's possible that this could work. So what makes better television? To ask the question is to answer it. So there is a preference for hedgehogs, in part because hedgehogs generate better sound bites. And people who generate better sound bites generate better media ratings, and that is what people get promoted on in the media business. So there is a bit of a perverse inverse relationship between between having the skills that go into being a good forecaster and having the skills that go into being an effective media presence.
Now, how does this come into play, though, I mean, sort of in the world that maybe those of us who are not hiring forecasters on a regular basis don't see? So if I'm a company or the government and I'm trying to assemble a team of good forecasters or get good, accurate, or as accurate as possible forecasts, what can I take from this book? I mean, in terms of finding these people and employing these people, and is that happening now? Or is it the same as what we're seeing on CNN or Fox News?
I think a lot of organizations in both the private and the public sector are taking an increasing interest in forecasting tournaments and using them as methods of keeping score on how accurate their forecasting methods are, their people and their methods and their teams. There's a growing interest also in using forecasting tournaments to identify people who are better at it. Develop your own core of super forecasters. There's growing interest in exploring methods of training people to be better forecasters. So I think this is going on. I probably shouldn't mention the names of any organizations who have adopted this right now, but the U.S. intelligence community obviously has taken an active interest in this area, and some private sector organizations have as well.